College and university students in Minnesota are graduating and looking for jobs. What are Minnesota candidates for governor in the 2010 election saying about the job market? Hi, I'm Caitlin Steen, representing the Minnesota State Student Associations. Minnesota State Colleges and Universities Board of Trustees Chair Scott Thiss and I recently interviewed the candidates about important issues in higher education today. Hear what they had to say to our students about jobs. Many of our students are finishing up their studies and are concerned that they're not going to find a good job in this economy. What would you do as governor to address their concerns?
Well, in the short term, I'm proposing a $1 billion bonding bill, which is also important for the MnSCU system because many of your projects were sacrificed to the veto pen in the last session. I'll put those first in a budget bonding bill that I'll bring forward from the typical 2012 to 2011. A $1 billion bonding bill provides 28,000 jobs in the private sector, construction and the like, and important kind of renovations, innovations such as the technology library at St. Cloud State and other projects. So we need to put that money forward, and that'll help provide jobs. And then an energy savings fund that will, based on what I actually saw in your counterpart, the University of Minnesota Morris, where they retrofitted all the buildings for more efficient energy use. They retrofitted the heating and cooling system to use alternative energy, which is going to be key to your future and your young people your age, to use alternative energy, build that industry. So we need to be doing what government can to stimulate job creation and economic growth starting immediately. And then, again, your education. I mean, that's why it's so crucial that it be affordable and available to you, and that you be encouraged to get the best possible education, which you are, and even more of it if you can need to do so, because that's the best guarantor of success. I've been over to China 6 times this decade. I've seen some of those young people willing to work for 60, 70 cents an hour at very menial tasks. Those jobs aren't coming back. We need well-educated people to be creating the new businesses, to create the employees for those businesses, to providing the essential services as teachers, as nurses, as educators, and law enforcement, which is, of course, a big part of the MnSCU training. And so, we need to create the jobs, but I'm confident that if you get a good quality education, you're going to find those opportunities.
Well, the first thing we need to do is to make sure that we do have an economy that is able to grow, that is able to invest, and that we're preparing for the future. And so the budget proposal that I've put on the table includes a couple of important components. First of all, I don't think we can just tackle the budget by saying, if we just tax everybody and make the status quo a lot bigger, things will work, or if we just come in and cut the status quo to the bone, it's going to work. For a lot of Minnesotans, a lot of students who are going to be coming into the workforce, a lot of older workers who are now in transition, the status quo isn't working. We have to think differently about what our economy is going to look like, how we incent it, how we allow it to grow. And so my proposal says, let's look at tax reform, not just raising or cutting taxes, but how do we first hold businesses accountable, but then secondly, give them the resources to invest in growth, in research and development, in buying new technology. We talk about manufacturing being on the decline. The reality is that manufactured exports are growing in Minnesota. You look around communities throughout the state, and there are a lot of manufacturing facilities, some of them 10, 12-person shops, but they're critically important to our economy. How do we make sure they can buy the new equipment, the new technology that is going to allow them to be competitive, to grow, to expand, to add jobs, or the technology companies, the biosciences companies, that they're able to grow and expand. And so my tax reform says we ought to invest in allowing businesses to grow. We ought to incent them to invest in the future. But then we have to be honest and say that we're going to pay for it. So lower the sales tax rate by 1%. If you're out buying furniture, appliances, you're going to pay a little bit less. But then we ought to expand it to where the economy is today. Some personal services, not business services, but personal services and clothing. Now we can mitigate the impact on low income. Maybe we do tax holidays for back to school, or we start the tax on clothing items $100 and above. But the reality is we have a tax system in Minnesota that was designed for a manufacturing economy, for an agriculture economy. That's not Minnesota today. We need a tax system that is designed for a service and, most importantly, a knowledge economy, and that's what I'm trying to get to. On the spending side, I do think that we need to reduce spending in some areas, but we also ought to be making investments, as I said, in research, in education, in those kinds of areas that we know will pay long-term dividends. And so for those people coming out of college, my message to them is, let's invest in growth. Let's invest in being the kind of state that is going to compete on the basis of knowledge, of skill, of productive labor, and that's what's going to create jobs for all Minnesotans. Good, well-paying career jobs.
You know, Caitlin, you just hit probably, I told you the 3 areas that are most important to me as far as governing this state over the next 4 years. It's redesigning government from the bottom up to eliminate the bloat, the excess, the duplication of services so that it's efficient. It's also about creating a environment, environment, and it's about education. What will we do for these students, not only today, but those that we're going to see in the next several years? We're intent upon creating a business environment that will not only allow our existing companies to survive, but to thrive again. Remember, Minnesota is still the home to more Fortune 500 companies in the nation. The problem is they are not expanding in Minnesota, and there's a reason for that. We need to create a business environment through different incentives to get our existing employers to start to expand, start hiring new workers again. And then guess what? We need to attract new investment. You know, I grew up a little before you. I grew up at a time in this state when we had all of these companies were fresh. It was Honeywell, IBM, 3M, UNIVAC, Unisys, Control Data, you name it. They were here, and they were coming here because not only does Minnesota have the greatest, I believe, not only is it the greatest place to raise a family, it used to be the greatest place to start and grow a business. We need to recreate that business environment so that we create new opportunities for these great people that we're training in our higher ed system. So when you get out of school, you talk about going to work at one of our great companies here in Minnesota instead of leaving our wonderful state.
Thank you for viewing and being interested in learning more about our candidates for governor. You can learn more about the candidates' views on tuition, online education, the budget, technical education, and changes in higher education at the website noted below. Here, you can view all 3 interviews in their entirety. And remember to vote on November 2nd.